and welcome to the Total Soccer Show.
Champions Edition.
My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who always gets 4 stars. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I appreciate that in the context, except that I feel like usually it's a 5-star system, so I feel like shots fired at the same time.
I'm talking about Uber and Lyft. You always get 1 star less than the full amount.
Hurtful. And also, I believe, last I checked, my rating was good.
It was good.
Something like that.
Mine was like 4.8, 4.9 last time. No, but that's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
but not perfect. I'm not showing off.
I genuinely have no idea what mine is anymore. It's been a while since I used them last night, so there you go. I used
Let's
Lyft
look
last
afterwards.
night. Yes.
Well, the US Women's National
Let's keep
Team.
talking about the various rideshare apps we have.
US Women's National Team now has 4 stars
Yes,
with
they do.
4 World Cup wins. It means my T-shirt is now very much out of date.
It is.
It's the old US soccer logo, and it only has 3 stars.
I'm going to grab a Sharpie. We'll add another one.
I mean,
it's
kind of what they
basically
did
what
after
Nike did. I do love that they added the 4th star, and then on the back they still only had the 3 stars.
Yeah, it makes me think that those weren't specially manufactured. Those were just the 2019 jerseys.
Somebody went to a craft store and grabbed those little like sticky gold stars that you can get if you do a good job when you're an 8th grader.
There was a very good
Maybe an
US
8-year-old.
soccer staff member who did a Google search last night for Craft Shops Lyon.
Exactly.
When I got some gold stars and some very good glue.
I mean, I would hope it was a Nike employee, but yes, it may also have been US Soccer. Who knows? But either way, it's deserved because 4th World Cup, 2nd in a row.
Yep.
Not too shabby.
Oh, there's so much to talk about. Top of the show, I want to talk about all the questions we had at the start of the tournament.
Yeah.
Can Crystal Dunn hack it at left back against top opposition?
The answer is yes.
What if Julie Ertz has to go and play defence? Who can fill in? The answer was what? Lindsay Horan or Sam Mewis in one game? Did we bring enough fullbacks? All that kind of stuff. Is Alyssa Nye good enough to take over for Hope Solo? Can Jill Ellis handle this tactically? Answers are yes, all the way down.
Yeah.
All the way down.
I mean,
2 World
I think
Cups
so.
in a row.
I think it's especially impressive that I kind of wrote this down quickly before we started recording. But if I told you prior to kickoff that basically the front 3 would struggle in this game for the U.S.,
which is fair.
Abby Dahlkemper would probably have her worst game of the tournament. Kelly O'Hara would be subbed off at halftime with injury, and that Sam Mewis. I mean, not saying she had a bad game, but if I put it to you right now, tell me what Sam Mewis did in this game. It was a somewhat anonymous game. I think she did a lot of
She technically had the assist for Lavelle's goal.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah?
I think Rose Lavelle does a lot of the work there. My point simply is that, if you heard all that, you might think, ooh, this is, the front 3, really not a good game? This would be bad. And instead, 2-0 win, 0 goals conceded. Well done.
Here's the thing, right? It wasn't a massively impressive performance from the United States, but I think the Netherlands' tactical setup had a lot to do with that.
Yes.
So, in classic Total Soccer Show fashion, before we get into breaking down the goals, let's talk about the tactical setups in this game. The Dutch threw a curveball.
They did.
They didn't go with their classic 4-3-3/4-2-3-1 and with the wingers. So let's talk about what the Dutch did instead.
They went with a 4-2-3-1, which is key because they generally kept 2 holding midfielders back.
Yeah.
More on that later. But then the big one, which you spotted, and I was sort of like, that can't be. This must just be a reset, is that Vivian Miedema, the number 9, the one who I was most nervous about, they dropped in and had her play almost as a number 10.
Yes.
In the center of that kind of attacking 3, with Berenstein starting ahead of her as the sort of target striker.
Yep, I would even argue in defence, it wasn't a 4-2-3-1, it collapsed into a 4-4-1-1 because there was just a line of 4, right? So the wide players, which ended up being Daniela van der Donk, so she wasn't allowed to have that number 10 role because Miedema had it.
Yep.
She essentially just had to play right mid/right wing. And Lika Martins on the left, they came back and just did a defensive job, which is not what we've seen them do throughout the tournament. So I would argue that Wiegman, the coach, she kind of blinked first and changed up her whole game plan and offered something more defensive against the United States. But I'd also argue that it worked for a good long stretch.
It worked for a very long stretch, and we can talk about the penalty later on. But I think in the first half especially, you can see the United States do come out kind of guns blazing, as we've seen them do. Yeah. And they run up against an orange wall. And then they have a few opportunities here and there in the first half. But for the most part, I think the Dutch plan really worked. And I think you could see the United States even start to make adjustments because I think initially we saw Crystal Dunn and Kelly O'Hara, the 2 U.S. fullbacks, almost coming very central and being secondary central midfielders at times. And I think the idea was, well, the Dutch are going to be in their 4-3-3. They're going to counterattack fast. So we're kind of okay with giving them the channels. The center backs will maybe spread a little bit wider. We can put that fire out. And then we clog up the middle. so they can't play through it.
I also think part of the reason for that, though, is that it means if Dunn and O'Hara come central like they did, then they don't go originally overlapping Heath and Rapinoe. So essentially, we can't get caught out and have the Dutch wingers get in behind us, right? I think that was the point of that. So they never went too far forward. We always had like 2 centre-backs, 2 full-backs, and Julie Ertz ready to offer good defensive shape so that like Lieke Martens couldn't burn us on the counter, right?
Yeah.
But instead, the Dutch were going with pace through the middle by having Berenstain as the farthest forward centre forward, right?
Yeah.
So the Dutch had a whole different thing that I think threw us off for a good long while.
Us being the United States?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not Dutch.
Absolutely, but I think...
How often do you hear me say whoop? Not that often.
I think you said it a couple times today. We were intermittently cheering.
Ironically.
But yeah, and I think that then you saw those few Dutch counterattacking opportunities that did happen came about from basically playing direct or catching the United States just a little bit overly committed, or the United States would be sloppy and it would kind of like concede possession, but it was never the sustained game plan of the Dutch to kind of pull the U.S. one side and then counterattack and exploit the other side.
It was more like trying to slip through balls for Berenstain, and I think the classic one is when Alyssa Nair comes out, gets there first and just kicks it clear, or a couple were just overhit. They never actually fully pulled it off in a perfect counterattack fashion.
Hope Solo would have scored on that clearance, I'm just saying.
So Nair did well on that, but I think it's a good example of the Dutch are not doing maybe what they're best at, what they're most practiced at, but they thought it was their best chance against the United States. And I still think Wiegman was right.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is how they defended, which I'd like to talk about as well, because I think that caused a lot of problems for the United States.
Sure. I'm assuming you're talking about like the kind of like moving everybody to one side?
Essentially being the 2 banks of 4 were tight and compact, and then they would, in a Diego Simeone style, like press laterally, right?
Yeah.
If we were going down the US left, then everyone would shuffle, all the Dutch players would shuffle over to that side, and they would kind of deny us the big switch, make us work it around the back 4, like go from left back, centre back, right back. By the time it gets to Kelly O'Hara, they've shuffled all the way over to that side as well. Right?
I would even say that I think there was an awareness that if there's one player on the United States who is capable of getting the ball on the left side, turning and like playing a ball all the way to the right channel, it's Abby Dahlkemper.
Yeah.
But that still means you're dropping it back to your center back. And I think what you see...
And it gives them time to readjust, right?
What you'd see is the Netherlands crowd all their players on one side of the field, and if that ball went back, they... Immediately is the way I would describe it. It wasn't like a full sprint, but you would see them then stretch out into those kind of 2 banks of 4 with Miedema free, and then they had the kind of whole field covered. If that switch did happen, then they crowd to the side where the ball was switched, and they kind of block that off, and it basically forces the United States into a lot of direct play and like hopeful through balls that don't come off.
And we did end up getting the ball wide, getting to the end line several times in the first half, but it seemed to me every single time the US could not like connect on the cross. I want to say because there's too many Dutch defenders in there, essentially, right?
I mean, yes, but I think also because the like product of or a byproduct of going direct is that even if the ball does, like there's the one in like the first maybe 10 minutes or so that does end up getting kind of contained by Tobin Heath. She gets it on the touchline. She crosses it in. There's no one there.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're
I'm
going...
not sure she looked up either.
I'm not
sure
she
worries
did
me
either.
a lot about a lot of the crosses I saw. I guess it worries me. We've won the World Cup now. I shouldn't be worried about anything.
Yeah, calm it down. But I guess my point is simply that if you're going to go direct, then it has to be almost what the Dutch were trying to do, which is going direct to one player who is central and can go at goal.
Yeah.
Because if Tobin Heath is able to collect that ball out on the right side and then drive to the end line and then cross, if you've played a 50-yard ball over the top that she's run onto, there's no guarantee that everybody else is sprinting for it at the same time.
Yeah.
I would almost argue that there's a guarantee they're not because they don't want to get caught out.
Yeah.
So then suddenly the direct balls don't really have that much effect because there's no one else to really then combine with.
And isn't this a point Joe Lowry made that you told me about? That essentially the US is very much in a hurry and very direct.
Yes.
And that's weirdly kind of a weakness, right? There's not patient build-up. But yet, weirdly to me, it's also what makes the US so powerful is they're just like, we are coming at you and we're doing it right now. And it won't come off and it won't come off, but eventually it will come off.
Eventually it will come off.
Eventually Alex Morgan will win a penalty or something will happen.
Or Rose Lavelle will drive and score a goal. But it still is the case, though, and I think this is where maybe people who are frustrated with Jill Ellis will retain that frustration even after she's won her second World Cup, because with all the talent the United States have, I understand where that argument is of like you should be able to possess the ball and move and find opportunities and pull people out of position and open up spaces, and instead it did feel like the United States were sort of like, okay, you want to go long, we'll get into a direct game. But I think that
Jill Ellis is just all about winning. I think the way I think about it is she's not about playing some beautiful style of soccer that is going to make everybody happy. She just does what it takes to win each game, even if that isn't that great to look at.
I don't disagree disagree with that, but it's still like you said, like the Dutch blinked first. I'm not sure that's true because I think the United States start getting into a very direct game, which I think leads to a lot of physical challenges and physical confrontations, which leads to fouls and cards and injuries, and
which leads to the dark side.
And you slow, yes, in the sense that the dark side is injury time and stoppages of play. That's the worst part of the game.
Yeah.
And worth noting, I believe in terms of actual playing time, the United States dominated possession with 28 minutes of actual play time versus 25, which right there to me
says...
How
does that work? That's like how long you have the ball?
I think as in like actual possession as opposed to the ball being out of bounds or like getting ready to take a goal kick. I'm not sure any of those count.
Oh, these FIFA.com stats?
Yeah.
So FIFA.com is good sometimes.
Sometimes. But I say that to say that like I think the United States did sort of let it get into a physical, slow game, which definitely benefits the Dutch because they're happy to be physical. Jill Ellis said that she felt like maybe some members of the U.S. press hadn't really kind of noted how physical and strong and determined this Dutch team were. And I think maybe she should count herself amongst that list because putting your very technically gifted players into a slugfest at times didn't really serve them that well.
Some of our players stood up to it there, right? Like Sam Mewis, I think, stood up to it.
Sam Mewis crushed some people. Crystal Dunn definitely stood up to it. Julie Ertz always stands up to it.
I also just want to clarify...
Unless she slides into it, which she does pretty well.
When I say the Dutch blinked first, I mean they changed their whole setup, right?
Okay.
They had Bloodworth at left back to try and contain Tobin Heath instead of playing centre back. They had Berenstein as the centre forward instead of wide. They didn't let Daniela van der Donk play in her number 10 free role. They made her play sort of right wing. I think they set up to deal with the United States rather than set themselves up to take it to us.
I think that's definitely true.
Probably still statistically their best chance, but it just didn't work out on the day for them.
It didn't, but I think if you don't have that penalty, which we'll get to in a moment, it may have gone to extra time. We really may have been struggling in the United States unless they kind of had some. It would have made Jill Ellis make very different substitutions, and I think at very different points than she wanted to, and ended up having to make. And I think it really could have been a different story if not for VAR, basically.
Yeah.
So
I think that's fair, because she missed it first time.
Yeah,
right?
But I go back to the physicality of the first half, especially just because you and I were. I mean, it's the World Cup final. We were up for it. We were really excited for it, and yet there was a 20-minute period, 15-minute period in the first half at least, where we were sort of like, this game's getting a little dull. Like this game's getting a little difficult to understand what's happening. Watching on the tactics cam, it's long ball, physical challenge, foul. Reset taken, couple passes, long ball, physical challenge, foul, and it was just sort of this terribly slow game of tennis back and forth for a while.
I would argue that the thing that changed it was switching out from that fullbacks coming central, don't overlap thing to sending O'Hara wide of Heath and sending Dunn wide of Rapinoe and creating those. They tried to do it by sending Lavelle and Mewis out wide, but then you missed them in the middle. I think that was the change that sort of sparked some life back into this game. Just essentially Jill Ellis realising that maybe there isn't such a threat from the Dutch wingers because they're playing a more defensive 4-4-1-1. So we can send the fullbacks forward. Let's roll the dice a little bit. In-game tactical adjustment from Jill Ellis. I just want to make sure she gets the credit for it because everyone seems very unwilling to credit Jill Ellis with tactical decisions.
Yeah, and I would say with that in mind, not the unwillingness, but the tactical adjustment, it also essentially the United States approached this game from the start the way they did to neutralize the main strength, I think, or what they thought was the main strength of the Dutch, which is those wingers, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
But then essentially, when those wingers move more central, instead she basically flipped that script entirely, and it became actually now they're more vulnerable on the wings because those midfielders are inside sometimes, or they're too far wide on occasion. But it leaves gaps, and once they start exploiting those chances, that's when you see overloads, and that's where the Dutch started to get stretched out and started to get pulled apart a little bit.
All right, before we get to maybe the second half and talk about the goals, today's show is sponsored by the fine and wonderful, good-looking people at SeatGeek.
That's right. Did you know that almost half of all Major League Soccer fans are female? That's not just a fact. It's something we're celebrating. It's the summer of soccer, and as we support the women on the field in France, SeatGeek and Major League Soccer are teaming up to showcase the female fans at home who've made this sport all that it is.
To learn more about this collaboration between SeatGeek and Major League Soccer, and to see the female fans of MLS showing their true colours, check out WeFan, WeFan.SeatGeek.com. WeFan.SeatGeek.com. The link will be in the show notes.
It certainly will. The United States will be doing a victory tour, I would venture to guess.
I've heard it mentioned already.
We saw that after 2015. I think we'll see it again, which means that you can use SeatGeek to see the U.S. women when they come to town, because they'll probably come to a town near you.
Yeah, I honestly think it's in their contract.
Offer does not include Alaska or Hawaii.
I think it's in the contract that in the CBA that if they win the World Cup, they get a victory tour, and all the players make some good money on that victory tour.
There we are.
That's part of the deal, I think.
Yeah.
If you'd like to go see that, get your tickets via SeatGeek. The games aren't scheduled yet, right?
They are not.
Those Hawaii and Alaska fixtures are definitely not scheduled yet.
They are definitely not. But yeah, you could use that to support the team that way. The other thing that has been very commonly talked about as this tournament winds down, wraps up, is you could then also use SeatGeek to get tickets to your local NWSL team if you have a local one, or to go see some NWSL games, because a lot of the players that we've just seen throughout this tournament will be playing in the domestic league, worth noting.
So if you want to get $10 off your ticket, and by the way, the club won't lose out on that $10. This is SeatGeek funds the $10 discount, right?
Exactly.
Use the discount code TSS. You download the app, enter the promo code TSS. That's TSS for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. I'll leave the tagline to you, Taylor.
SeatGeek, a ticket for every fan. Thank you very much to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's show. Let's get to the second half. Let's get to the goals. But first, let's start with a change to the second half because, as we mentioned, Kelly O'Hara comes off at halftime, has a head injury, a collision with Lika Martins at the end of the first half. Lika Martins stayed on, so that's interesting. But Kelly O'Hara comes off, Ali Krieger comes on, and I think she too is part of that sort of fullback staying wide and maybe getting a little bit higher on occasion. But as soon as the United States scored, we see Ali Krieger doing a bit more defensive job.
How excited do you think the Cooligans were when Ali Krieger came on?
I don't know if they were more excited between that or Rose Lavelle scoring, because they do have that photo of Rose Lavelle. I think they did an interview with her in their studio right before the tournament.
I see.
So yes,
all right.
I saw them claiming credit. The Cooligans' influence, I think
they should have been on the podium. Should have been on the podium lifting the World Cup.
Almost certainly. Yeah. Probably should have gotten the golden ball. I think so. Lucy Bronze wasn't there to collect the silver ball, so maybe they should have gotten that.
Yeah, silver ball. Yeah, cool. They can share it. Should we talk about this penalty?
Sure.
Actually, no. Should we talk about O'Hara coming off?
Sure.
What do we know about why she came off? Like, is there like a conclusive thing that she had a concussion, we had to take her off?
I believe from what Caitlin Murray, I was tweeting or messaging with, thank you, with Caitlin Murray before we started recording, because I was kind of wondering if maybe Kelly O'Hara at halftime felt like something wasn't right. We've heard that about concussions in the past, that even if you're cleared somehow, you may still feel fuzzy, you may still feel out of it, things just aren't quite connecting.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's a chance that she kind of notified somebody this isn't right, because, and that might just be complete speculation, but she comes back on the field of play. She plays the final couple minutes of the half.
Yeah.
She tries to not even leave the field of play, because I think her argument being maybe you don't necessarily have to leave if there's a suspected head injury, because maybe there wasn't and you're just down, but the referee wanted to stop play to be safe, so it's kind of penalizing you, I guess. But here,
and she looks kind of fine,
definite head injury.
Here's the thing, she looks fine when she plays the end of the first half. When you see her sort of celebrating the goals in the second half and in the end, she looks fine. I think maybe this was like a marginal decision of just like, we're not taking any risks, both to your health, Kelly O'Hara, and to the team winning this game. Right?
Yes, except that like we've seen plenty of times in like even in the past year, like Jan Vertonghen for Tottenham, when he comes off, goes back on and plays, and there are moments when we're like, oh, he looks fine, like he looks like he's all there, and then we see him like literally collapse on his way out when he finally does get substituted. So like looking okay isn't. Like, while I take your point and I understand what you mean, I'm still sort of like, yeah, but that's what doctors are for. Is to be like, you look fine, but like you're not like following the pen the right way, or like your eyes aren't focusing. Something is wrong. And just that she comes back on and then there's a change at halftime definitely is a little bit of a head scratcher for me. And it does sound like they're still evaluating her for concussion symptoms even after the game.
And maybe even if she's fine, I still say correct decision, because better safe than sorry.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, 100%.
All right.
Both for her safety, obviously, first and foremost, but then also if you have a player who has concussion symptoms continuing to run around, again, not very healthy, but also probably not going to lead to like the most cohesive of defensive lines, as an example.
Exactly. All right.
And you know who does allow you to have that?
Who's that?
Ali Krieger.
Ali Krieger, yeah. Yep. She didn't have a perfect game.
No.
There were a few mishit passes.
She had some nervous passes. But it's almost like she subbed on at halftime of a World Cup final.
Yeah, right, yeah. But she was fine enough. Didn't she have one moment where her and Ertz between her managed to tackle, I think it was Miedemar or Martins.
It was Miedemar.
In the box. I mean, that was a dangerous moment.
It was after Abby Dahlkemper got beat a little bit.
Yeah, she did get beat a little bit. Krieger and Ertz came up big in that moment between them.
They did.
Now should we talk about the goal?
We've
been hinting at it for a good long while. It's the Ali Morgan. Alex Morgan.
Yeah.
I'm getting very familiar like JP Telecamera. Alex Morgan.
Well, you would have just said Alex.
Yeah. Winning the penalty kick. The foul is from Van der Gracht, I believe, with the high foot into Alex Morgan's, right, the back of her upper arm, essentially.
And then maybe upper ribs, something like that. Yeah. And I think we can talk about a couple different sequences here, but to start with what happened, I think basically the referee's vantage point, I think she thinks Van der Gracht comes through. Yes, the boot's a little bit high, but not that high. This is her defense, I'm guessing, and I think the referee thinks that Van der Gracht gets to the ball first and puts it out of bounds.
That has to be the case because she awards a corner.
She awards a corner, and if you watch the replay, never touches the ball. The ball comes off Alex Morgan, who then gets kicked. Yeah. But I think that's what the referee thought. It's she gets her foot through, she puts the ball out of play, and then she kind of collides with Alex Morgan, but she's made a defensive play and won the ball. Yeah. And I think VAR then in her ear says, maybe you want to look at that one more time.
So this is, I'm not know if I'm just saying this because the team I was supporting won the cup, but this is a perfect use of VAR.
It is.
The referee missed a foul, got it wrong by awarding the corner. VAR looked at it and said, hey, ref. I mean, you saw the moment when she put her finger to her ear and listened. Hey, ref, we think you got this wrong. You should come and take a look at this on the monitor. She immediately runs over, takes a look. Doesn't take that many looks, right? Maybe 5 or 6 times at this incident. And is like, oh yeah, there's Van der Gracht's high foot. There it is going into Alex Morgan's right arm.
Yep.
Nowhere near the ball. It's a foul, right?
Yeah.
It maybe feels a little soft because it's not like a trip or some obvious.
I think it feels slightly weird because Alex Morgan is not necessarily going to get a shot on goal. If anything, she's going away from goal towards the end line, and then gets knocked over. So I think it's not as though she's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and then somebody comes in and kicks her, and then it's it's an obvious penalty. So I think it feels a little bit strange, and I think because the United States has, depending on your perspective, been fortunate or correctly given penalties and sort of moments in this tournament, and then Kelly O'Hara and that handball that wasn't looked at, I think maybe that's where it all kind of comes into of they got a VAR call. Are they going to win on a penalty? Is that how this game's going to be? That's correct, but feels wrong.
I think it's a classic example of the type of thing that would never have been called a penalty in the past, but will always get called a penalty because VAR sees it.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I
that's
think
the new world we're living in, right? And it depends whether you like that or not.
But I still think if the referee sees it from a slightly different angle and sees a player go in, studs up, and kick somebody, it's going to maybe be a penalty.
Yeah.
Maybe then it comes down to the old school idea of is it if it's a penalty at midfield, is it a penalty inside the 18? And maybe that's one that's given as a high boot outside of the box, but in the box. Maybe you just let play on and see what happens.
And maybe before we talk about Rapinoe taking this penalty, it's a good penalty for a couple of reasons.
Yep.
I think we should talk about the build-up to this.
Okay.
It's eventually a Tobin Heath cross that deflects off of a Dutch midfielder. I want to say it's Spitzer.
You are correct.
It maybe just bounces off the top of her head because it takes her by surprise. But Tobin Heath is given space to cross by, I believe, a smart run from Rose Lavelle.
You are correct.
Remember this?
It is definitely Rose Lavelle. Do I remember this? Of course I do. I'm the one who got excited about it because it's almost the exact same run we saw against England where she ends up dummying the ball Tobin Heath runs on and plays that ball across. She makes that same run, and I think Bloodworth, who's playing left back, probably to do with Tobin Heath, I think was the idea there. I think Bloodworth is also aware of that run from Rose Lavelle and is aware of it and made nervous by it because she is on Tobin Heath but drops to get to Rose Lavelle because I think she thinks, oh no, Rose Lavelle is open in the middle.
And if you watch this again, I would encourage people to go watch this again. It's because Rose Lavelle gives Spitzer the slip. Right?
Yeah.
So Spitzer has her. Bloodworth's supposed to have Heath. But Lavelle does this weird thing where she runs around the back of Spitzer. So Spitzer's like, whoa, where's she gone? It was a magic trick. She disappeared. And then Bloodworth has to pick her up, which means she can't go to Tobin Heath when Ali Krieger plays the ball out wide.
I might disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
I think it's that I think Spitzer is more focused on what's happening in front of me and I'm going to pass her along to whomever else is back there.
Yeah.
But I think she doesn't necessarily notice that everybody else is marked up or doing their defensive job.
Okay.
So now I think Bloodworth has to make the choice of, do I stay with Tobin Heath or do I mark Rose Lavelle, who's now open? Because it's not as though Rose Lavelle is like making a darting run anywhere. She's made that run into space, but then she's kind of in that space at that point. And I think Bloodworth gambles and thinks, I'll go to Lavelle, and now
Spitzer maybe should have gone out to Heath at that moment.
I think that's what she thinks will happen.
Does, but slowly, and that's why the cross hits her on the top of the head.
Exactly. But this is what we talk about, where because the United States now stay wide, the Netherlands have to kind of pull wide to try to deal with that, but now players are out of position. So it's Martens who steps to Ali Krieger, who I think is on the ball. Krieger then plays it to Tobin Heath, and Martens kind of turns around and realizes, oh no one is on Tobin Heath, and she tries to get back into position, and it's basically now you have that gap in that space for the ball to be delivered.
So that's good work from the United States. Okay, and then we've talked about Morgan winning the penalty kick. Rapinoe steps up to take it. I thought for all the world she might miss this because Here's my hot take, which I think you share, Taylor. Rapinoe did not have a good game.
I can't believe she was the MVP of this game. No, I thought she had...
Rose Lavelle was the MVP of this game.
Would go so far as to say I think she had a bad game. This penalty aside, at least 4 that I can remember, but I think even more than that times, she tried to do a step over and beat somebody, and the ball was just very easily poked away. Mm-hmm. She was errant in her passing on a couple of occasions. She was slow in her defense. She looked like a player. Kim McCauley made this point. It's almost as though she's carrying a hamstring and is starting in a game when maybe she shouldn't be.
Yep, and I would argue she's coming towards the end of her career, right? She's she's 35, she's 34, 35. You're already sort of one of the older players. You're definitely not one of the fastest players. Never really have been, right? It's not what Rapinoe's been about. But then you add a slight hamstring injury onto the top of that, and suddenly you're kind of struggling to keep up with the pace of the game.
Yeah, and I think you had the line at one point in there that it's like basically Megan Rapinoe has to be 100% to be able to do what's being asked of her. And even if she's 95%, that's 5% she can't do as well.
She kind of can't afford to lose it, whereas like a younger, fitter, faster player can maybe afford to lose 5% and still be in there. Like Lika Martins, for example, she's playing with that hurt toe. Mm-hmm. Not her best game, but you didn't know she wasn't like noticeably slower than usual.
I don't think so. Yeah. But I think Megan Rapinoe was, which feels weird to say because she ends up being Golden Ball, Golden Boot, game MVP, scores the penalty.
Literally armfuls of trophies. Arms full of trophies at the end.
And so, I mean, and it's a great penalty, don't get me wrong there. But I thought overall she did not have a particularly strong game. As I said, I don't think anyone in the front three did. Alex Morgan got knocked around a lot, but I think we still saw her trying to do too much on occasion and then trying to force shots on other occasions that I think it wasn't necessarily on. And then especially at the end, I think she and Tobin Heath and maybe Carly Lloyd to some extent all really wanted to make sure that they got on the score sheet too.
Yeah, but when you need Rapinoe in a big moment, she can step up and make the exact right decision on a penalty kick. So even though I was nervous, what I was nervous about was her going bottom left like she has done multiple times. Because we talked before about like pick your spot, like hit it like low in the corner, hit it pretty hard, pretty fast. It's going to be really hard to save. But we haven't really talked about it, but Van Wiedendaal has had a brilliant game up to this point for the Netherlands. She saved that Morgan shot where she stretched out. She saved that Mewis header at close range. She saved that Julie Ertz shot, like the rebound off the corner kick. She had a lot of like high-profile, really impressive saves. I kind of thought that like Rapinoe's going to go for this exact spot that she always goes for, and Van Wiedendaal's going to be equal to it, and she's going to get down low and get to it.
Yeah, I mean, Van Wiedendaal definitely thought she was going to that direction as well.
She did, right?
You can see that she's already kind of cheating that way in a fairly obvious way as Megan Rapinoe's taking this one. And I think this one, I genuinely don't know if she had already made the decision to go opposite way or if she's evaluating what Van Wiedendaal is doing and ends up just kind of side-footing it because she doesn't put it bottom corner. She doesn't put it even to the corner. She basically puts it maybe
center right.
Yeah, like maybe a foot or two to the right of like dead center of the goal.
Yeah. And so it's either a last-minute decision when she sees Van Wiedendaal go, or it's a fake out, like shape like I'm going to that bottom left corner. Because she does have that body shape, right? It opens up to go the other side right at the end. So it's either a fake out or a last minute decision. Either way, that's why Rapinoe is super important.
It is.
Right?
And it's ice in the veins too, not just to like take
pink in her hair, ice in her veins.
There we go. But not just to like take and like calmly convert the penalty, but also worth noting that after the VAR decision, like the players are waiting around, then the referee has to deal with the Dutch protests. They're also like around Megan Rapinoe and standing right next to her.
Yeah.
I think Miedema stands right in front of the ball and does like the shin guard adjustment and is trying to psych Rapinoe out. When the referee goes to talk to Van Wiedendaal about like, keep your feet on the line, 2 Dutch players come over and kind of stand on either side of Megan Rapinoe. So she doesn't walk away. She doesn't leave the box. She doesn't try to get any distance. She doesn't ask anybody to come in and move them away. She just kind of sits there, waits for them to leave, waits for the whistle to be blown, and then passes the ball into the net.
Ice in her veins. As Matt Doyle said, put her on the $100 bill.
I'm cool with that. That's fine with me. That's fine with me. Or maybe Rose Lavelle.
Or maybe Rose Lavelle. Would you like to do today's second ad before we get to the Rose Lavelle goal?
I suppose I would.
Okay, well, we saw this nice and clearly, not least because at least one of us is a Simple Contacts customer.
It's not me, so I'm guessing it's you.
It is me.
Simple Contacts is the most convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription and reorder your brand of contacts from anywhere in minutes.
So there are loads of things demanding your time. One of them is going to the opticians and having to do the whole eye test to get your prescription renewed. It takes time. It costs money. Simple Contacts is one of the solutions to that. You can renew your prescription online by doing the vision test on your phone or on your laptop. It takes, less than 5 minutes. It's designed by ophthalmologists and licensed doctor. A licensed doctor reviews every test, so you can skip the office visit, but not the care.
And if you have an unexpired prescription or you just need more contacts, you can upload a photo of the prescription or your doctor's information and order your lenses. They do all the hard work for you and take care of verifying and confirming your prescription. So you, as always, don't have to go to see any sort of eye doctor, and life can be easy. You can instead just stay in your small office and watch soccer all day. It makes life that much better.
The vision test is only $20, and if you go for an appointment, it could cost you like $200. So you're saving money. You're obviously saving time, but also if you just have a valid prescription or you've renewed your prescription through Simple Contacts, you can get money off when you order your contacts through Simple Contacts. That's my favourite part, is when I order them and they arrive nice and quick.
I imagine.
I stick them in my eyes and then I can play soccer.
They have all the brands and types of lenses you're familiar with, so you never have to shop around to find your lenses at the best price. As you said, Daryl Grove, the vision test is only $20, so that's nice. It's all about making it cost-effective and affordable. It is worth noting, however, that this is not a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam.
To get $20 off your contacts, go to simplecontacts.com/TSS20 or enter code TSS20 at checkout. What that means is, if your contacts normally cost $60 for a box, it will be $40. $20 off your contacts. Simplecontacts.com/TSS20 or enter code TSS20 at checkout. If you've ever tried playing soccer without your contacts in, you'll know that getting contacts is really important.
60 minus 40 equals 20. Yes,
yep.
Okay, yeah. Yes, there we go. I believe you're correct.
The math checks out. I don't know what the math is on Rose Lavelle's goal.
Good?
Good.
Yeah.
Good math.
Good math. She get good grade. Thank you very much to Simple Contacts one more time. Yes, Rose Lavelle, thank you very much for making me way less nervous throughout this game, first of all. A very good performance from Rose Lavelle all over the pitch before we even get to the goal. There's that one sequence that you and I were really impressed by where she basically sprints back, I think a good 60 or 70 yards to break up a Dutch attack.
Yeah, but then she fouls, right? But it's a good foul.
Yes, I think No, I don't think it is a foul. I think she pokes the ball away and the foul is given. Maybe it should have been. But then from that, or at least like a minute later, she then really calmly controls the ball under pressure, then plays a really smart ball through the lines to find, I think, Alex Morgan.
Yes.
But it was just like right there. It's like you see everything. She works back. She does an incredibly good defensive job, all with maybe a hamstring concern herself, but is still able to do that. And then just how calm and smart she is on the ball. It is a fundamental aspect of what this team is able to do.
Yeah, and we talked about the movement. She's involved in that winning the penalty on the first goal, right? It's so important. Did you hear Rapinoe afterwards in that quick interview? They asked her about Lavelle, and she said, she's been so important for us all tournament because she's the one that opens everything up. And so she was basically saying it was really great that she gets this goal in the final because now she gets maybe more of the recognition. And then I'm extrapolating from there saying it's more of the recognition made from people who aren't paying attention to the smaller things that Rose Lavelle does.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about what Rose Lavelle does here. For her goal, I want to start with Crystal Dunn.
Yes.
Because we've talked about it a little bit, but I thought Crystal Dunn, maybe second to Rose Lavelle, had the best game. Second best game of anybody on the field today.
Yep. Lots of really good tackles, lots of overlapping runs when needed, perfect decisions of when to overlap, when to not overlap. Yeah, flawless, basically. I don't remember any bad passes. Lots of nice, I saw her 2 or 3 times do that thing. You know, you receive the ball but step over it and change direction?
Yeah.
She kept doing that and it kept fooling Dutch players.
It did, but then she also kind of made up for it when her own teammates didn't fool Dutch players, because there's one sequence in particular when she goes for the overlap, Megan Rapinoe tries to do a step over and a move, and again, the ball gets poked away, Rapinoe loses possession. Crystal Dunn halts her full sprint run as quickly as possible, maybe even faster than I thought possible.
Yeah, it's a really quick turn on a dime, change of direction, isn't it?
And gets back in and wins the ball, and if she does not do that, the Dutch have a 2v1 down the USA's left side, and I think only Becky Sauerbrunn is there. She's been pulled over to help.
Yep.
But that's an easy one to bypass with 2 players, a quick 1-2, and suddenly the Dutch could have been in. But it's that athleticism combined with the strength to hold off, combined with the technical ability to hold the ball up and win it back.
And then just decision making, I think, is a key part of it.
Yeah.
So the final results of the Can Crystal Dunn play left back at the World Cup experiment are in, and the result says yes. It's all good.
Yes. And then to go to this goal here, it's basically, I think Sam Mewis is putting pressure on. She's come wide. The Dutch trying to counterattack. Maybe Martens makes a mistake here? Or is it Martens or is it Van de Donk who has the ball? I think it might be Van de Donk in this moment.
Yeah, I think it is Van de Donk, yeah.
Yeah.
And Van de Donk has grown into the outside of that and maybe instead of trying to dribble at Crystal Dunn, should have just played the ball wide.
But instead, she takes a heavy touch, and this is where, again, I think you see Crystal Dunn's rounding into a very good left back. I don't know if we'll continue to see her there at club level, certainly, but for the U.S., I'm fine with it because she's trying to defend too here. It's a 2v1 counterattack. Yeah. And she spots it's a slightly heavy touch from Van de Donk, and that's all it takes. The camera cuts to like a sideline shot where you can see everything.
The Steadicam guy,
and you see Crystal Dunn just collapse on that ball very quickly.
So it's like a step and block. Like she steps into a block. It actually reminds me. This is a weird parallel, but have you heard of the famous? It's more famous in England, but the Bobby Moore tackle. It's like in the 1970 World Cup. It's on. I want to say Jairzinho, when that famous England-Brazil game.
You just had to get an England reference in here?
No, because it's almost identical, the type of tackle, because it's so decisive, the way he like steps into him and like forms a block and comes away with the ball. This Crystal Dunn thing is almost an identical version of that. It's like such a clean but powerful tackle.
Yeah. I mean, so much so that it spills to Sam Mewis. It's that good of a tackle. Sam Mewis then plays it central to Rose Lavelle, and this is the key thing. You mentioned that Van de Donk had Groningen wide. It's because Groningen had tracked Sam Mewis out of the middle, then stayed wide because she thought the counterattack was on, so that when the ball is played centrally to Rose Lavelle, there's only, one Dutch midfielder in there anymore?
Spitzer's there, but the pass bypasses her. So as soon as Lavelle receives the ball, she just has basically the Dutch back four to run at.
Yeah. And what we...
And not the first time Lavelle found a load of space in central midfield.
That's what I was about to say.
She seemed to keep finding it.
Well, and also, I think 2 minutes before, we basically see this sequence almost happen before it even happens.
That's what I'm thinking of.
And it's just that Rose Lavelle takes a bad touch. She doesn't quite get the ball out from underneath her foot, so then she has to slow it down and find a pass. Here, she drives forward with that ball, and I think as soon as she realizes that who's the defender that's on her who conceded the penalty again?
Van der Gracht,
that she's kind of backpedaling, not really trying to close the gap, trying to kind of guess and kind of play head games. I think Rose Lavelle is just like, I'm shooting here for sure.
Yeah.
And it's a really clever little fake step over she does in front of the ball that I think makes Van der Gracht bite, and then it's just 2 more touches and the ball's on the net.
So it's what, she fakes left she fakes as if she's going to cut left essentially, but it's not a step over because it doesn't go over the ball, so it's a step under?
Yeah, it's behind the ball. But I think what it does is if Rose Lavelle's faking like she's going to cut it to her left, then the defender maybe slightly bites on that. Then when Rose Lavelle doesn't, the defender now overcorrects because, she's going to go to her right.
Yeah.
And then Rose Lavelle does go to her left.
She turns her around, right? Doesn't Van der Gracht end up spinning in a circle? And while she's doing that, she's obviously slightly out of position. That's when Lavelle has opened up enough space for her to shoot, and then the shot itself is chef's kiss.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's inch perfect, especially given what we've already talked about with Van Vendenal being so good that here it had to be perfect.
To get beyond it is impressive, right?
Yeah. And it is, I'll give credit where credit's due. Tobin Heath immediately spreads wide once Rose Lavelle gets the ball. I think she's looking for the through ball, but that she spreads wide, pulls some of the defenders with her. Alex Morgan does the same to the left. And
so probably Bloodworth, the left back, gets pulled out to the left.
I think they both definitely wanted a through ball rather than Rose Lavelle shooting, but when the ball goes in, I'm pretty sure they're okay with the shot being taken.
I'm pretty sure they are because they get the World Cup.
Yeah.
Wonderful moment from Rose Lavelle. Are there any other performances we want to highlight or mention in this game?
We've talked about Crystal Dunn. I would mention, I just wanted to go back to, I did not think this was Abby Dahlkemper's best game. I thought she had a couple moments where she was a little bit questionable in possession.
Miedema got her off balance.
Yeah, well, I mean, even she had a few giveaways that, especially in the first half, she has one that kind of leads to a moment of indecision for the United States. I think it's the Netherlands' second chance they have. But then also at times we saw her beaten for pace. She ends up getting the yellow card at the end of the first half. It's kind of harsh on her because I think there's lots of other things that go wrong that she then has to kind of put out a fire. She gets beat by Miedema for that one sequence. So I didn't think it was her as solid of a defensive game as we've seen from her. But I sort of think that she has been maybe the most reliable defender for the United States this entire competition. So if she has one bad game, I'm not necessarily going to hold it against her.
I would have said Becky Sauerbrunn has been the most reliable defender, but then there's that moment against Spain? I can't remember. Or Sweden.
With the giveaway?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think but also didn't she not start a game, I believe, as well. So that's what I mean.
She didn't start the Thailand game.
Yeah, so I think Dahlkemper's been, in my mind, then the most consistent defender that we've had in there.
That makes sense. But I thought Sauerbrunn was very good in this game. There's a lot of, if you go back and watch, there's a lot of her heading the ball away.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of heading crosses away from Becky Sauerbrunn.
With her head fully wrapped up because she was bleeding pretty profusely from it. And I did see somebody it was Brooks. Brooks Peck made the point that when the United States start to get better chances and end up scoring 2 goals is after Becky Sauerbrunn is bleeding and looking very angrily at the Dutch.
No coincidence.
No.
I think Julie Ertz was excellent. I think she stopped a lot of things in their tracks and also had some nice balls that she clipped out wide, right, to the touchline that were really perfectly weighted passes.
Yeah. And she did a chaotic like hoovering job of like she like for the Miedema chance that we talked about where Dahlkemper gets beat, Julie Ertz goes in and makes a really, really strong defensive play, which Miedema I think
with help from Krieger, right? Which is
but it's like Miedema like the first one is Ertz making a play and it forces Miedema to adjust. I think she cuts back and then when Krieger's there, she cuts back again and then Ertz comes through and like passes the ball away and wins it. But it's like the initial defensive job of slowing it up, then winning the ball after that. It's like a 1-2 punch, and I think she's very good at doing that.
All right. So I want to talk about the subs as well.
Sure.
Christen Press came on for Megan Rapinoe, which is definitely the right decision, right? Because Rapinoe, I think, was tiring, and I think that thing we talked about where maybe she wasn't going past people.
She had been tired, but
and she made some bad passing decisions. It was getting worse and worse, right? So it was the right time to replace her with the much faster and much more defensively capable Christen Press, and maybe just that like she's just fast enough to get back, right?
I'd agree.
But at the same time, the US goes back to the 5-4-1, which has become the Jill Ellis decision of choice at 2-0 up.
Yes.
Right? To go to the 5-4-1 and see this thing out. We did it again, and you can't argue that it didn't work.
You cannot.
Yeah, you can't make an argument that it didn't work.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Yes. So, I mean, again, good adjustments there. I was surprised we didn't see Lindsey Horan, but then again, we've talked about, like, while I said I didn't see a lot from Sam Mewis, I think, again, she probably did a lot where if you went back and watched it, you would see her running off the ball, making plays, making runs, holding up the ball, doing all that type of maybe, like, less glorified work.
You mentioned a dragging Gronin wide, which is part of the reason Lavelle's wide open for that second goal.
And then Lavelle had a great game. Ertz had a great game. So with those three all having probably like three of the best performances, Crystal Dunn would be in there too for me. Becky Sauerbrunn in there too. So there's your five. But like then I think it makes sense why maybe we didn't see Lindsey Horan or why we didn't see her at all, I should say.
I actually think it's the O'Hara substitution is the reason we didn't see
That's probably
Horan.
true.
I think we were always going to see Press for Rapinoe late in the game. I think if we're 2-0 up, we're always going to see Carly Lowe down the field because there's probably a thing of like she's this veteran player who deserves to be on the field when we win the World Cup finally. I think the other sub would have been one of the central midfielders because it just makes sense.
I think if past was precedent, it would have been Rose Lavelle for Lindsey Horan, and then it's
to see the game out, right?
Horan and Mewis are your two central midfielders.
Absolutely, but because O'Hara had come out for Krieger, there just wasn't that sub to burn.
There just was not.
But I'm sure Lindsey Horan is still perfectly happy. She's played a huge role in winning the World Cup.
Don't you speak for Lindsey Horan. She will speak for herself.
I would not presume to do so. The other thing I'd mention is just the lack of efficiency on the US counterattacks. In that 5-4-1, we did have 2 or 3 beautiful breakaways of just 1 or 2 players. We didn't overcommit, which is smart, right? We didn't overcommit players forward. But there was definitely Tobin Heath sort of over-dribbled a couple and could have had herself a goal in the World Cup final if she just pulled the trigger.
I think she just got in her head because you contrast what we're talking about with Rose Lavelle where she does a move, sets up the defender, and makes like the decisive action to then, okay, I'm going to go, take a touch, get a shot off. And Tobin Heath,
she doesn't have to go all the way around the place. She just makes enough space to shoot, right? Which is all you need.
Yeah, but even, I guess what I mean though is more so that like once you've got the defender in a position you want them to be, you take that touch to get away, to create separation, and then you have an even clearer shooting chance. Whereas I felt like Tobin Heath would beat a defender and then kind of wait for her to collect herself to beat her again. Or like
she likes to get close and do a move in close and then go around them.
Right? But I think because of that, it maybe goes to a little bit more of like a chaotic moment. And so I felt like even when she would beat a defender, she would then have to get herself under control or get the ball out from underneath her. And then by the time she did, there's another defender in there or she's kind of killed her angle. And I would have very much liked for Tobin Heath to just get a shot off a little bit faster.
She didn't have the tournament that I wanted to
I'm not even
have.
sure she scored a goal this tournament.
That one went down as an own goal, didn't it? So maybe not.
Yeah, we'll see.
So I really thought this would be the Tobin Heath tournament where she'll be burning people and there would just be endless Tobin Heath highlights and goals. It didn't work out that way, but she had the cross for the Morgan penalty and she did the defensive role against France. So in the end, she's contributed to the team, which is really what this US women's national team is all about, right?
Yeah, certainly.
All right, so not going to argue with that.
My one other point, strangely, I'm going to go back to the Dutch for a moment. The other reason I think the United States struggled is because we've seen them have, going back to the last World Cup final, design set plays were a big feature of how they attack. They get 2 goals against Japan that way. Here, they had design set pieces, and I think it was a lot of go near post, like have other runs that screen so Julie Ertz is open, she can flick it on. And then once we've done that a few times, the United States would then go like a long ball to the back post. And I think the Dutch were alive to it every single time when they went long.
Martin spotted it, right?
Martin spotted Megan Rapinoe wide open and immediately sprints there like before the kick is taken to cover that. But even at the near post, we never saw Julie Ertz really able to put one on frame or turn it into the 6-yard box. The one time she does win it,
job, right?
she turns it into the 6-yard box, but instead hits Alex Morgan, and Alex Morgan, I think then it deflects off of her and they're able to clear.
Yeah.
So I felt
that ends with Julia's getting a shot on the second go round. Yeah.
But I think that one aside, which was a bit more of a scrum, to me it was a good sign, a good indicator of how organized and like up for this game the Dutch were. That they weren't giving up cheap set piece goals. They weren't going to give up any sort of cheap opportunity. So that it ends up with them giving up a penalty. Has to be that much more painful for Dutch fans and the Dutch players and the Dutch coaches.
I absolutely agree. Before we get tweets, did you say the US did this to Japan?
In the World Cup final of 2015.
Oh, okay, not in this tournament. Okay. I thought you were getting...
No, I'm saying go back to the 2015 final.
Yeah.
A huge part of their attacking game plan was set pieces. They scored 2 of their first...
They did.
Of their 4 goals or whatever.
Now I'm very impressed with your memory.
Of course. Of course, my friend.
All right, shall we wrap this up? Because I think we've talked about everything. And I also think the Copa America final is about to kick off.
I think we should...
You have more to talk about?
Just to say that it's weird that like I feel strangely odd that we're not being like, and we did it, we've won. It feels like we should be a bit more rah-rah about like it's been a month of covering this team in this tournament. But I think it just maybe part of that, if I'm being honest, is that I kind of fully expected this result, and so. I
didn't before the tournament, but once we got rolling, I had this feeling of like, this team's
I mean, literally today against the Netherlands, it felt like Spain were more challenging than we thought. Then it's France, then it's England, who like I thought there was a genuine chance they were going to be able to find a way through the United States. Yeah. So going up against the Dutch, I don't mean this to be disrespectful. It just sort of felt like they're going to win. Like
they're not quite as good as France or England.
Yeah. And so I think maybe that's why I'm a little bit less like, we did it, and more of a like, okay, we did it. Good job.
That makes sense to me. I think for me, the moment we beat France was the moment, I think I said on the show, questions were answered about Gilles' tactics, about Crystal Dunn, about all that kind of stuff. And that's the moment when I kind of thought, all right, this can definitely be done. Right? We can definitely get this done.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, and I think I also, because there was all the talk about like arrogance, I don't want to end this on an arrogant note. So all I want to say is we got our trophy back.
We never lost it. It was just in our possession for a long time, right? 4 more years.
4 more years.
4 more years. And then up next, the Olympics.
I think Doug McIntyre did ask Jill Ellis about like her prospects after this competition. I think her contract ends at the end of this month.
Oh, really?
She has said she has not thought about it, but I'm guessing U.S. Soccer will probably be offering her something. Yeah. Hopefully a lot.
I mean, she should get the job for the Olympics at least, right? Agree. And then she should take the England job. That's just my feeling.
I had a feeling it would be.
Yeah. All right, Taylor Rockwell, I will say thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, Daryl.
Listeners, thank you for listening to this World Cup final review show. Well done, the US Women's National Team. Woo-hoo! Up next, we're going to watch the Copa America. We're going to have a review of the Copa America final. Later tonight, we're going to watch the Gold Cup. USA-Mexico will have a review late tonight, of the Gold Cup final.
About to hit stop recording.
Hit stop recording.